You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening, everybody. How are we? Good. Glad to hear it. Well, it's going to be a very quick little intro that I'm going to be doing tonight because we've got a good sort of 60 minutes worth of an interview to play out to you with lots of paranormal information and history as well intermingled to do with Avenue House in North London. But before I start that, just a few little things to mention to you. Kerry, in her roundup on Monday, which you can see on YouTube as well as everything else, that YouTube channel, the one that you've all gone and subscribed to for us, she mentioned that it's still Heritage Week here in the UK, and we put the link up on the Parasearch page, but it means up until this weekend there's like free history stuff if it's something that floats your boat and something you can take your kids and your friends and everything along to, and places that opening doors to things they don't always open doors to. So if history is your bag, or if you want to get more into it, go and have a look up the Heritage UK stuff. It is only in the UK, I'm afraid, to anyone listening from other countries, but you know, we try and spread the love a little bit. What else? Well, we've got a new competition. It's to win 2 books by Jonathan Moore. Now, I want to win these books, so I think they thought I was joking when I said I was going to quit until after the competition is finished so that I could actually enter, but I haven't as yet, but you know, thinking about it. And last but not least, tomorrow night's show, the Spectral Zone at 9 o'clock with our Kaz Rooney. She's going to be talking to the Paranormal Charity Warriors crew. Hi, Emma. She's going to be talking to the Paranormal Charity Warriors crew, the ones who are raising money for lipodystrophy UK. So if you're looking for something to do tomorrow night and 9 o'clock's your bag, do tune in and have a listen to that show and hear what they're going to say. They're going to be talking about, there's an event going on at Revesby Abbey. So go and check that out. It's a brilliant cause you're raising money for, and it's should be an interesting show to listen to. So, without further ado, well, tonight, the interview I was joined by Kerry and Steve from Fright Nights London, who've investigated Avenue House in North London quite a few times, and it's one of those venues that, well, I'll let them tell you all about it. And on tonight's Haunted Histories, we're joined by my awesome friends from Fright Nights London, Kerry and Steve. How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, we're good, thanks. Very well. How are you?
I'm all right. Kids are back at school now, so I actually have Monday to Friday. I have time to actually work and do stuff without refereeing World War III at the same time.
Oh, heaven.
Are you all two like that? Have they been fighting a lot over the school holidays?
I have. I've been working through a lot of it, though, so I've been spared most of it. But, yes, weekends, it's been no exception, and evenings. So, yes, it is nice for them to get back to school.
It is, isn't it? I think 6 weeks is just too long. My mum always used to say that when I was a kid, and I'd be like, no, it's not. I'm starting to see their point now.
Yeah, you get it now.
I think after 4 weeks, my eldest was wanting to go back to school because he was bored.
Yes, I think boredom does kick in a little bit.
But they're back, or at least till half term. so we can get our lives back in order and we can start concentrating on our ghostying and spookying again.
Yes.
Now, it was you guys that first really sold me Avenue House, the place we're talking about tonight, the place in Finchley in North London. It was, I think it was one of our first, I think it was when we did our first show and we talked to Ragged School. You said last year, you said to me, "Oh, Avenue House, you've got to go if you ever get a chance. It's amazing," etc., etc. And it was on my, it's on my bucket list still to investigate at some point. But I thought, in the meantime, why don't we do a show on it? And so we can sell the place to anyone who's maybe umming and ahhing about investigating it, because it is one of the ones that does seem to be it's a bit like sort of some of the other classic places, like say Kelvedon Hatch Nuclear Bunker, maybe Charlton House, some of the other sort of locations around the UK that most groups, the bigger groups anyway, tend to investigate. But that doesn't stop it being an amazing place, just because it's not, shall we say, unique, but it's still well worth going to. Now, before you start telling me some of the experiences you've had there, if we look sort of at, I'll do a quick potted history of the very early stages. Well, the house wasn't built, it was built about 1859 by a Reverend Edward Cooper, who was related to the, I suppose for want of a better term, the Lords of the Manor family who owned the land. But before that, it was known as Temple Croft Fields, which was actually owned by the Bishop of London. And he gifted it to the Knights Templar in 1243. Now, if anyone's interested in the Knights Templar, the Paranormal Concept guys, Kerry and Paul, did a show on that last month, actually. It's should be on YouTube and Spreaker, so you can have a listen to that one if you want to learn more about the Knights Templar. But from the Knights Templar, it was actually given to the Knights Hospitaliers, or Hospitallers, in 1312. Now, I was alluding to Kerry and Steve. It was a bit weird, this, because the Knights Hospitallers actually set up in Malta, and they actually were part of Malta's history. And my show last week was talking about Malta in World War II. So it's a bit weird that it's a tiny little island and it's got links to this week's show in a way, as well as last week's. Now, the Knights Hospitallers, or Lears, how it was pronounced, is actually still going, because one of the things I wondered, I don't know if you're wondering this too. Say yes, Penny. Are you wondering this too?
Of course.
Okay. What's the difference between the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitallers, is what I was wondering. Well, apart from the fact the Knights Templar aren't going anymore, they were more of a fighting force, albeit religious. The Knights Hospitallers are actually still going. They're actually a medical thing more than a fighting force, providing care to those in need and everything else. And they are still very, very much going, and I suppose an association, if you like, which I thought was quite interesting. And they date back to the 1200s. Yeah. So it's I found that quite interesting. But that's the main difference. One was more medical, one was more fighting. Well, in 1540, the land that the Knights Hospitallers was on was seized by good old Henry VIII. And then sort of various things were done with it until we fast forward to when the original house was built by Reverend Edward Cooper in 1859. Now, I'm going to stop there with my history sort of talk as to what happened to the place, but does it look Victorian when you see it?
It's a strange looking building, for want of a better way of describing it. From the front, it's very unassuming, and people often, when they drive up to it, sort of wonder if they're in the right place.
Right.
Most of the pictures that you see of Avenue House tend to be taken from the back, from the gardens.
The original.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, so sort of from the front, it isn't the most sort of amazing sort of looking building, not going to lie. But once you're inside, a lot of its original features shine through. And that's what we sort of look at the bigger picture when we go there, and sort of make people realise that it has a lot to offer as a location. It's a beautiful house, and it is a beautiful building.
Yeah.
How big is it? How big is it inside?
It's got 2 floors, and there's several sort of rooms on each floor. We've obviously got the cellar as well, which is split into 2 parts. So that's quite a bit of cellar room there. And then they've got the turret at the very top, which used to be the room that sort of Stephen used to, sort of Inky Stevens used to look over at the grounds. Where he used to let people come in on a Sunday and walk around the grounds, and he used to there and watch them. So that's a beautiful part of, and probably my favourite part of the original
part of the building. It hasn't been modified apart from a strip light they've put in.
It's the only thing they've really changed is a light.
Left it.
Okay. So, I mean, you investigated Highlands Hall with me earlier this year, Highlands House in Chelmsford.
Yes.
How big is it in size-wise in comparison to, say, something like Highlands?
It's not quite as big as Highlands.
Right.
But it goes off to the left to sort of 2 rooms, and then to the right, sort of you've got a grand hall at the end.
Right.
2 sort of rooms leading up to it.
Say it's around the same sort of size, but it seems to have more corridors and rooms in it.
Right.
Compared to the other.
Highlands House will seem to be more sort of sprawling, let's put it that way, in comparison.
Yeah.
So it seems, I would say probably slightly smaller, but just I think the layout's different. It's a
little bit confusing.
It can be confusing on the first floor, because when you get into Stephen's room, there's another sort of 6 steps up to it, so you're not quite on another floor, but you are sort of up another sort of half level.
Yeah.
It's almost like a mezzanine sort of on the side of it.
Well, you mentioned Inky Stephen. His name wasn't actually Inky Stephen.
No.
In 1874, it was taken over by Henry Charles Stephen, who was a very, very famous and well-known ink manufacturer. Hence, he was known as Inky Stephen. But he was also quite a benevolent chap. And when he died in 1918, he left the property and the grounds for the benefit of the community.
That's right.
But in 1918, it was also being used as a VAD hospital. VAD standing for voluntary, voluntary aid detachment. So these were the people who volunteered to be nurses and stuff to look after World War One victims, but they weren't part of the standard nursing detachments. And a lot of them were set up in big houses and stately homes, and they had something very, very similar. As we mentioned Highlands House. Highlands House did exactly the same thing, and if you go online, you can find lists of all these houses that were used as, if you like, auxiliary World War One hospitals, which is pretty amazing. So we'll get on to the next stage of it, its next incarnation from 1919 onwards in a minute. But when... So you go in.
Yeah.
What do you first get greeted with? What sort of room are you first greeted with as you go in?
Well, the foyer that you come into is quite large.
Entrance hall.
Yeah, and then straight in front of you, you've got the stairs sort of leading up to the floor. But we go round to the left of the stairs, and you've got the basement doors, and then to the left-hand side, you've got which we call our base room when we're there. And it's the sort of main hall that you go into. It's not particularly huge.
It's not a big hall,
but yeah, it's sort of it fits us and everybody in. Actually, a piano in there as well that I believe used to be Spike Milligan's.
Well, Spike Milligan's got a statue in the grounds, hasn't he?
He does indeed, yes. So yeah, that's our sort of when you first come in, and then you've got sort of a kitchen round to the right, on the left-hand side of the building. And then you go out to the back of the building, which again is quite nice actually, even at night when we go, to go sort of into the gardens and sort of look at the perspective of the house from there.
Their size, aren't they?
It's lovely.
Well, we mentioned before, I know when we talked about Valence House, we mentioned that stairs does seem to be a hotspot in a lot of these places. Is it a hotspot there? Has it been a hotspot?
It's it has a feel to it. Almost, you know, it's a well-travelled staircase, but you don't really see any spirits on there. It's usually just the feel of energy around you as you're going upstairs.
Sort of busyness, like.
I mean, if you were to see it, it's almost like seeing the traffic and seeing it in sped up mode. So you only see the lights. You know, it's almost that sort of feel to it. It's got a lot of energy going up and down the stairs. They're well travelled.
We haven't actually done any sort of investigations on this staircase. Actually,
it's never really actually come up.
I think it's been so much more in the house to investigate. We haven't actually tackled the staircase.
Okay, so we're going out the back of the house now, as you said.
Yeah.
What's out there? And what have you experienced out there?
People, I mean, we have had people taking photos of the back of the house and believing that they're seeing things through the windows on the first floor.
We thought we saw a man's face looking out the window.
But there's been nothing proven to sort of say, oh yes, that definitely was something of an anomaly, if I'm honest. So we have discounted
it. We looked at it. We've looked at daytime photos and nighttime photos.
Yeah. And
it seemed to be there on some of the photos. So we think it was maybe something on a top shelf, and you could see from the down low. So we discounted it. We had no choice because you can't 100% prove that there was actually.
Yeah, because they were offices that are closed, so it's not something we can go in and sort of investigate those particular rooms, unfortunately.
Right.
But it's funny, you know. Obviously, you get these investigations and people go out for a cigarette, and you know, of course, that's expected. But with Avenue, people tend to congregate outside.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, and even when we've done them in winter, people tend to congregate outside and have discussion, and it's the only one that we do that people do that.
Have they said why they feel the need to almost be drawn outside?
No. I mean, we've just put it down to maybe just having a social bunch when we've been there a few times. But it's one thing we've noticed that, you know, we don't have that at other venues.
Okay. So does the ground floor that we're talking about at the moment, not the cellar, the basement, but the ground floor, does it have a positive feel to it? Does it have a negative feel to it? Or is it just nothing?
I wouldn't say it's nothing. I mean, we have, when we go to the right of the stairs, there's again like a long corridor, but it's a wide corridor. It's got to be about sort of 10 foot wide, so it's not a narrow sort of corridor. And then you've got a couple of rooms before you get into like a main hall. The main hall, that's where you experience.
It's the main hall. That end is has a feel to it. It doesn't feel nasty, but there's definitely a presence there. I mean, I've been a medium. I picked up on a man, and he's completely afire, and he walks into the room, not almost like, you know, his arms out and his legs slightly widened. But he walks in, and he's just completely on fire.
Did anyone die in the 1989 fire when the East Wing was gutted?
Well, this predates that, because I thought it was part of that, because before when we started, Stephen actually goes outside. He doesn't want to hear the history that we do, and I did mention briefly the fire to the people there. But when we sort of inquired further, it was predating.
A big fire.
Yeah, it was. You know, sort of, I think hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Whether that was even before that building was built. So we weren't sure when it was, but we believe it was probably several hundred years ago now.
Yeah.
Well, some of the Knights Templar were executed for heresy.
Yes.
which could have included being burnt.
Yeah, because we did have other people who were in our group who actually said the same thing to me. They were surprised because they actually saw the man as well walk into the room.
A lot of people feel hot in certain areas, and they're almost on fire sort of feelings.
Yeah,
the temperature just shoots up, and it's a particular cold room, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for people to get all of a sudden really hot and feel faint from it as well was very interesting. But this was after we'd finished in that room.
Yeah.
I say, looking at the history, I couldn't find anything. The only fire I could find associated with the building was the one in 1989. But as you say, that's too modern for what you saw. Now, it could have been something related to when it was the VAD hospital. It could have been one of the World War I patients had been burnt.
Possibly.
Quite possible. And also following the World War I period, from 1919 to 1925, it was an RAF military hospital known as RAF Central Hospital Finchley. Now, it could have been a pilot who was burnt in a flying accident.
True,
possibly. But the fact that the Knights Templar movement, a lot of them were seen to be heretics, that fits with that as well. Unless it's like a metaphorical fire that the person was showing you. It wasn't that he actually did burn. It was more
it was certainly a complete. He was completely covered in fire. You could tell it was a man. That was see through the flames or anything. The flames were so violent, but it's almost like he was made of them. He burnt so badly. Maybe it was just to see someone walk in on fire was almost like I feel a little bit concerned. I've never seen a demon or anything nasty like that, but I mean, I would say that was a stereotypical sign of something really, really nasty. But I've never seen one, and I don't believe in them. So I would say it's probably a representation of what actually either happened to that person, or trying to emphasise that they suffered so badly due to this engulfing of flames. But within walking in and seeing this person walking towards me, they were gone quicker than they'd come in. It was just 2 or 3 steps into the room and they were gone. But,
so do we know which part of the building was used as a military hospital?
I don't
know. No, I don't know, to be honest. I know that certain parts were, and I believe at some stages people were picking up on a nurse here and there, because obviously you get people who come in who are quite sensitive, and I think like sort of beds, like so I think you come up with beds. One of the rooms, but
one of the rooms upstairs, yes.
Yeah, it was upstairs, and
a very powerful, strong lady, very oppressive, in a like a grey uniform. She felt medical as well. She was on the 2nd floor.
That's right.
She didn't like men very much, and she didn't really care for women either. Very, very standing in the corner, ignoring everybody. As soon as you go out, something had happened in the room. You went back in, and that is a feeling.
Yeah. And this was on the 2nd floor.
Yes,
second
floor.
This was a heavy feeling. Everybody that went in there felt really heavy, almost like hangover-y sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Heavy head, arms and legs felt really heavy. It's almost like a complete different atmosphere you were walking into. You leave the room and you were fine. It just left. As soon as you left that room, it had gone.
See, I found details of quite a lot of RAF personnel who died at the hospital between 1919 and 1925. But one of the ones that really stuck out for me was a Lieutenant Charles Campbell Wood. I don't know if you've heard of this name before. He was actually South African, and he had joined the RAF in early 1919 after fighting. I believe he was medical corps for South Africa during World War One, and actually was won some kind of military honour for it. But on the 27th of December 1919, he jumped off Hammersmith Bridge to save a woman who was drowning in the Thames, and he's meant to have jumped nearly 100 foot to save her, but didn't realise that the tide was out, and injured his head on the riverbed.
Yeah.
He saved this woman. He did save her, but from the injury he developed tetanus and actually died on the 16th of January 1920 in RAF Central Hospital Finchley. And his remains are actually interred at East Finchley Cemetery.
Yeah.
There is actually, anyone who's interested, it sounds a bit, well, everything we talk about is a bit morbid, isn't it, at times, but there is actually a plaque commemorating him on Hammersmith Bridge.
Oh,
okay. So his name was Lieutenant Charles Campbell Wood.
yes.
I find that sort of story, so his was the most memorable, but I did find quite a lot of lists of military RAF personnel who died from various things, and a lot of them, they weren't admitted to the hospital, it seems, from flying accidents. It was, one of them was admitted because he got injured when a stone went through the windscreen of his car. And one was injured practicing for the Hendon Air Show, because Hendon Aerodrome obviously is quite close.
Yes.
Although that wasn't an RAF base per se, it was used for the Hendon Air Show to show people what the RAF could do post First World War, while they were still waiting to find out if they were going to get granted military status, kind of thing, or if they were going to get dissolved after the war had finished. So I think from a military hospital, nurse, quite austere.
Yeah.
Probably didn't like men very much because she had to deal with silly nurses cooing over men in uniform.
Yes.
Probably a bit of a harridan, bit of a battle axe.
Yeah.
That would explain it. That would explain. Because at the back then you didn't become a nurse and have a family. It was one or the other.
Mm.
And if she'd got to matron status, probably long past having a family.
Yes, good point.
So anything else on that floor that you've experienced?
Yes.
Yeah, we did have, it was our first event there last year, and we just did our walk around. We always do a health and safety walk around before we start an event, just so we can just check out the building beforehand. And myself, Stephen and Ian, who was the medium on that particular night, we were walking up onto the first floor and then into Stephen's room, which has got these sort of 6 steps or so into it. And I was first to walk through the door. And as I walked through the door of this room, my stomach did a complete and utter flip, like on a roller coaster, sort of. And I walked into the room and I immediately felt I shouldn't have walked into the room. I felt it was a big mistake. And I thought, that's really weird to feel like that. And I couldn't sort of understand why I felt it. So then Steve and Ian walked in and both sort of said the same thing. Yeah, they knew that there was something just outside of those doors. So when it came to later and we brought our group up there, a lady she was standing by the doors, and Ian said, "Oh, would you like to stand outside on your own and just see?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." So she stood outside, and it was her first ever ghost hunt. And she's actually one of our regulars and a friend now, actually. She's been on so many of our events. And after about 20 seconds of standing out there, she lets out an almighty scream. And I've gone running out there and dragged her into the room, and she is crying her eyes out and absolutely terrified. And all she kept saying was that he's going to rape me, he's going to kill me. He's going to get me, and completely and utterly distraught. And it took us a long time to calm her down and actually get her back out of that room. What we didn't realise is she was sensitive. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was on those stairs wasn't particularly pleasant, and I think he was sort of showing her sort of, in his time what he was capable of or what happened there.
Yeah, very strong.
He was quite a strong spirit. I don't think he meant harm. But if it would have been anybody else, somebody might have gone, oh, I just feel a bit weird, or I feel a bit sick. I think that's what you would have got from somebody, but because Gemma, unfortunately, is a sensitive, she picked up more than she was sort of able to handle, and she didn't know how to handle that anyway, and it was quite a shock for her to experience that. I mean, we eventually got her out of the room very reluctantly through that door because there was no other way out. So we had to sort of get her back through there. And she was absolutely fine when she left the room. She was laughing and joking, absolutely fine. She couldn't fathom what had happened and didn't really remember how she was. But when this first happened, Steve did go out there.
I went out there because I wanted to see what had caused this. Out and I saw a shadow running down the hallway, so obviously I ran after it to see what it was. And this hallway has 2 ways off from it. You get to the staircase and it had gone, and I couldn't work out where it had disappeared to. So I thought, oh well, this is interesting. I'll turn around and I'll walk back. And I got about halfway down the corridor and I felt something push into the back of my head, and it felt nose, and as soon as I turned round again, I saw the same shadow running back down. So I mean, I made sure that it wasn't lights from outside, but there's no windows in that particular area.
Right.
So I turned round and started walking back again, and I felt the same thing again, like something pushing into the back of my head, and it felt like somebody's nose and breath on the back of my neck. As soon as I turned round, the shadow went again. So I went backwards to see if it had come close to me again, and I went back into the room to see if this lady was all right, and the medium at the time said, you saw it, didn't you? And I said, yeah, and he goes, he's like a shadow and he'll run because he's more aggressive when you're not looking. And later on that night we actually heard swords, and then we had EVP running at the same time, and we had 3 bangs. One from one end of the room, which was where the door was, to right across towards the windows. There was 2 consistent bangs. One was almost directly opposite the first bang, and then one to the left-hand side of it. There was another bang, and it was like bang, bang, bang. It was 3 bangs back to back, and it had moved so quick. And we recorded it, played it back, and there was no bangs on the recordings. And the recorder was on the table; it banged twice, and it wasn't recorded, but the whole group heard it, and we were all round the room. So it was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a strange room because it's actually a really welcoming room. And it's a really positive feeling in the room. It's not associated with the room at all. It's actually a really...
It's almost like the room before. Yeah,
it's like I say, it's just in sort of up the stairs and in the sort of 2 foot before you reach that room. But the room itself is lovely.
Yeah.
So do you this spirit, do you, or this entity, whatever you want to call it, do you think it is deliberately confrontational, or do you think it's playing games, just having fun?
I would say it's from a time where life was cheap, and if they wanted you to do something, they took you in almost like press gang sort of thing. They'd hit you over the back of the head and take you where they wanted to take you. You know, if they felt that you were a service somewhere else, they would do it. It almost that sort of time.
So do you think this spirit was the person who did that press ganging, or was someone who was press ganging?
I think it was somebody that was maybe in charge of ensuring manpower or people in a certain place, and his job was to get them there no matter how or what. And it felt quite if you come with me, I'll either stab you and take you, I'll hit you over the back of the head and take you, or I'll just grab you and get a load of people to pick you up and take you away. And it felt like that.
But did it feel like it was part of the house, or that it had come into the house?
It
Does that
felt...
make sense?
Yeah, it didn't feel the same as the house's energy, but it feels like it's been there for such a long time. I don't know, maybe it was attached to something, maybe it was before the house, or even if it, I can't remember if the beams were old or from old ships or anything, so it could have been
some,
maritime sort of, if it was attached to old beams. But
am I right in thinking there's quite a lot of artefacts in the house?
Not
Is
so
there
much.
it's not a museum with things in it?
More of offices and...
they sort of have some art sort of hanging up here and there, but I wouldn't say it's more of a sort of, they're sort of like a gallery sort of selling it rather than than sort of anything preserved.
So as you say, the beams, especially if you're sensing a maritime.
Yeah, that's the way it came across. I think that's how I put it down to. I would say that it was like a maritime sort of way of, you press gang, you smack someone over their head, they end up on a ship halfway across the ocean and put that sort of feel.
But we haven't had it other times we've been there.
We've been there a few other times, and this is just not there. So it could be almost like a seasonal spirit, where certain anniversaries or something like that, it becomes very strong. Other times it's because if it was a grounded spirit, you'd think more frequently it would be there.
Could it have come with your guest who?
I wouldn't have thought so. No, the way it came across was very forceful.
Right.
I wouldn't have said it was negative. I would have said it was more forceful, ensuring that their job is done correctly and what they've been told to do, they're doing it.
Like I say, if I was standing outside the door, because I'm not sort of that sensitive, I probably just would have felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Picked up on the details that this lady picked up on.
Well,
it's a good job I wasn't there. I'd have probably told it where to go.
It was quite a force to reckon with.
Yeah, it's quite overwhelming.
You've not seen me when I'm with a male spirit that's a force to be reckoned with, have you?
They're normally quite sweet to you, Penny.
No, they're not. To be fair, they're not. But I can't be doing with bullies. I'm one of those people. I'm very polite to spirit. I am, because I'd be polite to them if they were alive. So, but if one starts trying to push people around or bully me, or I don't. I hit back. I don't like it.
No.
So if one was telling me it was going to rape me and everything else, but then again, I suppose if someone doesn't realise that they're sensitive and they pick up on these things, if you've got a barrage of that kind of information being thrown at you, it would be a bit like, holy shit, what do I do with this?
Or isn't it? It's
but when you sort of get it wherever you go, I'd probably almost be like, bring it on, big boy. I just don't like spirits that are bullies. I know anyone's listening going, Penny, you're meddling with stuff that's dangerous, you shouldn't be like. I don't quite mean it quite like that, but I wouldn't allow it to see me affected.
No.
Does that make sense?
I was to say, the first thing I felt was I had to run after it. Go after it. And you've met me, I'm not that kind of person. I wouldn't go running after something I can't physically see. But
you don't really strike me as the most aggressive of people, Steve, no.
I felt that I had to do something and I had to run after it. And it's almost halfway down the tunnel going, what am I doing? And I'm chasing something I can't really see. It's almost like a shadow. What am I doing? But
I think that's a feeling most of us get on a regular basis, where we hear a noise and rather than run away from the noise, we run to the noise, or we see something moving in the distance. It's rather than running away going, shit, get me out of here. We're running towards it going, is you there? Is anyone there? Do you want to talk to us? Yeah, it kind of goes with the territory.
Yeah.
I don't get these people who watch television and they hear a noise, so they run in the opposite direction. That's like, God's sake, run to it.
No, that's it.
Exactly.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. So, did anything else happen in the? We haven't talked about the basement yet. I'm deliberately leaving that until last. But
Yes.
did anything else of note happen in the main house?
In the bit that goes up into the tower room, it's a very lovely feel to that room.
It's very peaceful.
Very peaceful, very relaxed. You can see why it is where it is. It's almost like a room in the heavens, you know.
Yeah.
You're
Just out of the way a little bit,
and you feel so calm. It's such a lovely feel. But
And that was Inky's room, did you say?
yeah.
Yes, he used to sit up there, and it's a very small room. It's just in the turret, but I mean, you probably sort of fit 5 or 6 people in it maximum.
Yeah.
But it's so lovely, and you can see that he would be sort of comfortable sitting there looking over the grounds. And you know, we've been told by the people at Avenue House, you know, how fond he was of looking at the people, appreciating the grounds and enjoying the use of the grounds, which is why obviously he wanted it to go to the public and to be enjoyed. So yeah, I can't say there's anything sinister or anything of concern. I know people have experienced footsteps up and down the turrets.
The wooden stairs,
because they're it's a sort of an old staircase, but we haven't had anything of note happen really in that part of it.
No.
We take everybody up there just so they
can
get a feel of it. We don't take them outside because, funny enough, there is a window outside that you can walk or probably not even crawl around the turret on this sort of wooden sort of platform. But we wouldn't take anybody out there. It's not very safe.
Or unless you didn't like that particular guest. So, has you got anyone to ever do a lone vigil up there?
Have we done any lone vigils up there?
No, I don't, we've had a group of 4 up there at any one time, and they said there was someone there with them. They were 100% sure that there was a 5th person, and they were asking out. Nothing really happens, but they did feel that an extra person did enter the room. They heard movements on the floorboards and the up. And there
I volunteer. If I ever get to do Avenue House with you guys, I'll do a lone vigil up there.
Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be brilliant.
In fact, so what I'd probably do is take my book and just sit and read.
Yes.
So I'm relaxed. Because then if there's someone there who wants to come and talk, they're more likely to do it when I'm relaxed than if I'm on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. That's my offer to you. I'll do a lone vigil up in the turrety bit.
Yeah.
Of it's what I've just drawn a bit of a correlation with is, you know, we mentioned that Inky was a very benevolent person. The fact that he would open his grounds up to let the public look at them. Yeah. He did leave his whole property and everything to the benefit of the community. Okay, it became a military hospital, but it was still it was to the benefit of people. But you've said that not only does that room, his turret room, feel very, very warm and welcoming, but you also said his bedroom felt very warm and welcoming.
Yeah, I mean, generally the rooms in Avenue House were there's a good feel about them. Like very, what I would say, positive sort of location, and I think in time where we've experienced things at Avenue House, I don't think it necessarily was at the time where it was sort of his home and how it was. And I think a lot of the things predate that. I mean, obviously, again, with it being a hospital, you know, you pick up on things those times. But I think by and large, I mean, you know, I know with the sort of the spirit or entity that we were experiencing just outside of Stephen's room. But overall, it's just there is just a very positive feel to the rooms. You know, some places you go to, that's not always the case.
No.
You can go into a room and go, okay, there's something here. What is it? It can be oppressive, but I think there's only sort of a couple of places in Avenue that bring sort of a sort of a different feel to them. But it's great because when you're walking from one room into another, to have that sort of different feeling, is a good indication that something is amiss. If you have all of the rooms feeling the same, you're not really picking up on much. But and even our groups pick up on the same thing. How do you feel in this room? Well, actually, this room's way different to the last one. And we try and sort of decipher why. But the room with the oppressed lady, she's like the possible matron. That like a noticeable room that's different. Stephen's room's been pretty good. Like I say, apart from the knocks and taps and things, we get a little bit of activity in there, but by and large, it's a positive feeling room. And
I say, we were talking off air about. I personally think that most spirits are positive. I don't think. We were sort of saying whether it's 50-50 or different, or does it depend on the location? And even with the background this place had as its 6 years as a RAF military hospital, that doesn't necessarily have to mean negative, because not everyone died. A lot of people would have been cared for by nurses who would have made them better, so they could go back to their flying career or be demobbed or whatever the situation was. Yeah. The place was a bit of a sort of did quite various things. I think it was a library and all of that. Between it being closed, the RAF Central Hospital actually moved to Uxbridge, I believe it was, in 1925, and didn't shut down until 1940 or 1941. But from 1925 onwards, it was a library and it was offices and various other things. But then during World War II, its use changed again, and it actually became council offices on the floor 1 and 2. But the basement was actually used as an air raid shelter.
Yeah.
Now, one of the standing jokes I have heard on more than one occasion is the reason we don't have more demons in the UK is we don't have cellars like they do in America. But every conversation I tend to have with you guys, the basement tends to come up, whether it's Ragged School, and even in our conversations before we went on air, Avenue House was having the conversations about the basement. Tell me about the basement.
Okay. Well, the basement is sort of split into two parts when you go down the stairs. To the left-hand side, it's more of a long corridor basement. And going to the right-hand side, it's more sort of, how can I describe it? Sort of an open sort of room, which is what you'd call like a typical basement, but also with another door off of that to reveal other sort of smaller rooms, which are used for storage. So there's only sort of certain sections of the basement that we use to do videos in. The long section, again, we get people sort of standing either side of the wall. There's not much else sort of to move in there. But Steve, you've picked up on a spirit there.
Yeah, there seems to be like a young lad, say early teens to late teens. He seems to have learning difficulties, but he seems to be a really, really lovely character. He'll knock, he'll tap, but it's very soft. It's very gentle. It's nothing to like make you jump. It's just enough you're aware it's there. In his movements, if he moves, he shuffles his feet. Then it's very subtle. It's not very loud. It's a real soft and gentle kind of energy, and it likes to muck around and have a play. It's very, very, very nice feeling. He's such a down to earth character. He's just got just a great feel and attitude to him. It's just everything about him just makes you feel so positive. This is such a positive energy. He is there. He's not a ghost. He's spirit. We're not quite sure why he's there because he doesn't really tell you much. But he's just happy that people go down and see him.
So, what made you come? What makes you feel that he has learning difficulties?
The way he acts, he acts young. He's a lot younger than he actually comes across as. saying stuff. He doesn't know quite how to say it, and if it's the correct way. There's certainly no swearing from him whatsoever. He's very, very quiet. I don't think he even knows a swear word. I mean, he'll just giggle, I feel. But he's a really gentle character, and if he was to touch you, it'd be a very soft touch. It wouldn't be like a tap or anything like that. He'll stroke your back or play with your hair very softly, and that's the sort of energy he is. He's very soft energy, very peaceful, humble. That you're down there to see him, really. Right. Which is such a lovely.
Yeah.
Everybody
nice.
Walks out of that section going, "Oh, wasn't that nice?" And you feel uplifted from it.
Do you have a sense what era he's from?
I couldn't tell you. He doesn't show me much. He shows me enough to be aware that he's there, but doesn't give me much information.
Right.
He's such a lovely, bouncy sort of character. He just wants to play. He's even like he's almost like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you." He sort of waves at you, and he's touching things or tapping things to get your attention.
Does he have certain kind of guests that he is more comfortable with, or is it just people in general?
I think people in general. He seems to be a very caring person. If you're quite I wouldn't say nasty person, a negative sort of person, you're not really interested in that sort of thing. You don't really want to know about that. You're after the darker energies or something like that. He'll ignore you. He'll come away from you. He'll know that you're not really interested, but it's almost like a sulk. it's almost like, "Oh, all right," and then you can feel energy change around the area slightly. So I won't bother going down there. I'm just going to sulk. I'm going to go and play with these guys because they like me. And it's sort of feel to it. But I think everybody that's ever been in there has always walked away from that section really feeling positive, upbeat.
So you're spoiling my thing now that basements only have demons. There's got to be someone a little bit shitty down in that basement.
Oh yes.
Sadly,
you see, there's a right side and there's a left side, and unfortunately, as soon as you go towards the right side into this room, all bets are off. This energy, this lovely boy energy, he does not like it. He will not go past the stairs. He will not go anywhere near that area. And as soon as you start getting closer, you will hear bangs, taps, whispers.
We get some good results on K2s down there as well.
Will go ballistic down there, and we're saying mid-level, not on the ceiling, not on the floor, holding mid-level in the air. They will go ballistic. Temperature drops are quite quick.
Yeah. I mean, with a basement, it's hard to with temperature drops, it's hard to sort of get a reading that you'd sort of say, that's a complete and sort of definite difference. But
when sensitives walk in there,
their
first thing they go is, "Oh, I don't like this room," and it's that feel straight away. As soon as you walk in, you're not supposed to be there. Get out, and that's the feel to the whole room.
It's one of our second visit there. I held a vigil down there. There was only about 6 or 8 of us, and we were all in a circle. We were actually sitting down. We had our torches on, so it was lit. We hadn't sort of gone into the dark, complete dark yet. Just getting everybody comfortable, really. And we were recording audio. And all of a sudden, a lady who'd been to many events, and some of ours, so she was sort of in her 60s. So she was, and she wasn't a shrinking violet. She calls a spade, let's put it that way. And she sort of said, "Oh, I've been scratched." And I said, "Oh, really?" She said, "Yeah, I feel like I've had a scratch." So we looked at her arm, and as we were looking at her arm, the lady sitting next to her, who was 18 and it was her first ever event, she said, "Oh, I feel like I've been scratched on my face." We're like, okay, this is a bit strange. So sort of took torches for a closer look, and they were both sitting next to each other. Everybody else was okay in the group, and Yeah, the lady on her shoulder was scratched, and it was quite noticeable. And then when we looked at the lady's face, again, it looked like a scratch, but it was a wider scratch. So it felt like the atmosphere in the room changed. And I'm quite a mild-mannered person, I would say. And I started getting very angry. And I sort of asked some questions on the K2 and it lit up. And I was like, did you do this? And it lit up. I was like, why did you do this? I'm not happy with you. How dare you touch somebody? And again, I'm not very confrontational. But it was a change in the atmosphere.
It dropped. It got heavy.
Really, yeah, it was very, very aggressive, very angry. We decided to stop it at that point because obviously these two ladies, and we took them out of the environment. And I mean, they were absolutely fine and weren't affected at all.
When they go back down and confront it and kick off.
They were not sort of.
Are they from Essex by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Us Essex girls. Hey.
And yeah, so they were not impressed, but equally they were fine, you know. And we said let's stop it here. They were like, no, you know what, we're absolutely fine. And we've got photographs of the scratches.
That was going to be my next question. Did you get photographic evidence of the?
Yes. I mean, the lady whose face was scratched, like I say, it was like a wide scratch. It was it looked quite violent, I suppose, for want of a better word. But the next day she sent us a photo, and it actually looks like a burn.
It's like a red hot poker had been struck on her face or rubbed on her face. It's a considerable burn, blistered burn.
Yeah.
Could the cellars have had a furnace in them at some point?
Possibly. I mean, the man we were, because we then went back down and did sort of question. And he was happy to communicate with us. Sort of, it was glass divination we were doing down there with him, and he basically said that he was against women. And the only thing we noticed about the two ladies in our group, well, they were the only ones in skirts.
One had a skirt, one had three-quarter lengths on,
and so their ankles were showing. And we were wondering, because everybody else had trousers on, whether, because we were trying to work out why they were targeted, because like they were so different in personalities.
One's very quite quiet and the other one's very loud and proud. So
and we were trying to sort of work out why it was them, but it's the only thing we came up with was that. But on further investigation we were asking this guy and asking questions, and he said basically he was murdered by a woman, and he was angry that this woman had murdered him. And then we asked further questions, and it turns out she was a prostitute. And he basically admitted that he raped her, and then she killed him because she was angry, and she killed him. That's what he's told us anyway, sort of thing. Only by yes and no, obviously on glass, so we didn't get any sort of any voices down there on the spirit box or anything like that. But it was strong on the glass, and that was what came through, that he was quite angry. We had been there before and after and had nothing like that at all. But again, with what Steve said earlier, you know, with anniversaries and things, it does change things. But he seemed to be a very angry spirit.
Very angry.
You know, there is historically normally a male spirit in the basement.
And a lot of people like it.
Yeah, but we've never had anything like that before. And even to date, or any of our other events, we've never had anything like that. I mean, we were concerned it was going to put people off, but if anything, people were, let's go down there, let's do this. Saying, come on, affect me. You know, they wanted to be affected by him. To have
saying,
that
if you can scratch him, you scratch me.
Yeah.
Well, you can do it. It's like,
so we were very surprised how keen people were to do that. But nothing else happened other than the good results on the glass divination down there. I mean, you know, there's only so much you can take from what they say to you as whether that's proof or not. But that was what was coming through on the glass. Sadly, Steve was at in a different section at that point. So to sort of know whether that was sort of the truth from him or not. But yeah.
Then later on, we did go down there, and we had a few sensitives picking up on lying energy, something not quite telling truth. So we don't know if it was actually lying about its history or lying about what it was actually doing there, or we're not quite sure.
We have had some connection to, I think once there was a connection to Spain in the basement there. Someone said someone was speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And they were storing items in there. This was on another visit there, but there was Spanish and they were storing items. And I don't think it was legitimate. Sort of. But again, we don't know how far back that reached. But that was, again, the basement, that part of the basement. So it's always been relatively active down there.
Quite an active basement.
But just on that one occasion, we did have that activity. That was, like I say, to date, we don't have anything near that at any of our other events. Nor do we want that.
Well, the thing to take away from what we've been talking about for the last sort of 55 minutes is that not to be put off by how a building looks from outside.
Not at all. It's a beautiful building. It's lovely.
Good images in there.
Yeah. Definitely sounds one that I'm going to keep on my to-do list. Firstly, because I'm doing that lone vigil for you, and secondly, I want to see if I can get any soldiers chatting to me, because you know how good I am at getting the soldiers to chat.
Oh, we do.
It's still happening. It's not stopped, and I still don't know why. But yeah, I'm still getting. I had 2 when I was at Landguard want to talk to me, so from different eras as well. So there you go. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks,
I know how busy you are at the moment. And I think all your investigations you've got coming up for the next couple of months are all sold out.
They are. We've got our new psychic walk that kicks off on Halloween in London.
Yeah.
We've got some tickets available for that.
That's going to be interesting.
That's 7:30 to 9:30. Just taking a walk through the streets of the city with Steve to see who's haunting there on that particular evening. And then we've got a couple of tickets left for Charlton House on the 3rd of November, and then a few tickets left for Ragged School on the 17th of November. But yeah,
the Bell sold out.
It has sold out 5 months ago. Yes,
yeah, which is at the end of this month. Obviously, the Bell being synonymous with the Jack the Ripper murders.
Yes.
Wasn't there another one you told me sold out?
Fort Horsted in
Fort
October.
Horsted, yeah.
Yeah, that's gone as well. So I've just finished Valence House on Saturday night. That was a really good event. So
that was a sellout as well, wasn't it?
It was. We've had a waiting list.
You see, we've kind of grown up together, you and I, haven't we? Really.
Yes.
And I'm so chuffed to see you guys using the word selling out, or not selling out. That's the wrong word. Sell out. No, that's wrong. Sold out. No, that's wrong. Got no tickets left. It's so good to hear. It's so good to hear. It just proves that when you get a good location with a good group, word gets round. It may take a little while, but word definitely gets round, and people will go on those investigations with you.
And we get people coming back again and again, which is lovely, because you build rapport with people, and and they come along. They're a bit more open, sort of the more they get to know you. So people are a bit more open what they're experiencing and how they're feeling, because sometimes you get people who just don't say a lot.
The amount of times we've had people on events that have been very quiet, and then the 4th time they've come down here, they're screaming at the top of their voice. You're like, whoa, how would you expect that?
So
that's one of the so you've done investigations with me. I'm like, come on, people, talk, say something, join in. I really don't enjoy the sound of my own voice, but someone's got to say something. Yeah. Well, it's really good. I'm really pleased to hear that, and I'm sure you'll be back again next year when I start doing the 2019 dates, because I know we've already talked about a few places you're looking at that I'm sure we can wangle a show around. If anyone wants to contact the lovely guys at Fright Night. I've completely forgot what your group's name was then for a second. Fright Nights London. Gosh, Fright Nights London. We'll post the links to their Facebook page and everything up. And I know that obviously they've done a few shows with us, which you can go and check out as well. And if anyone is doing the Bell pub, do listen to the Jack the Ripper show that I did in August with Ripperologist Mike Cavell, because that'll tell you a little bit more about Jack the Ripper and all the sort of stories and myths and everything else associated with him. But they shouldn't impact too much on the Bell, because it doesn't focus on the Bell, it just focuses on what Jack did, so or is reputed to have done. So, well, thanks ever so much, guys. Really appreciate your time. We'll speak again soon.
Yes.
All that leaves me to say is, don't forget, Parasearch has shows on 5 nights of the week. You can catch all of them on that YouTube channel that I keep telling you to subscribe to, and on the Spreaker channel. You can download them, you can listen to them at your leisure, you can listen to them when you're on your commute, however you want to listen, just listen. But until next week, my lovely people, have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.